Welcome to Wisco Legacy. I'm your host, Corey Kundert. On Wisco Legacy, we talk to inspiring Wisconsinites to hear all about their life's journey. On today's episode, we have Megan Schilt and Emily Murray from Avenues Counseling right here in Monroe, Wisconsin. On this episode, we talk about the journey that led them to Avenues Counseling. We talk about the services they provide, and we talk about a new initiative that they're starting in Green County called Greencounty. If you check out my website, wiscolegacy.com, I wrote an article that describes Be the Change Green County. I also put a clip up the other day on social media that describes it as well. It's a really great initiative that they're doing to really bring comprehensive mental health care to Green County and its residents, and it's really exciting work that they're doing. So go check that stuff out. We talk a lot about that. We talk about mental health and, again, the journey that led them to Avenues Counseling. And with that, I will dive right into episode 18 of Wisco Legacy with Megan Schilt and Emily Murray of Avenues Counseling.
Hi, I'm Emily Murray.
I'm Megan Schilt, and we're the owners of Avenues Counseling.
And this is our Wisco Legacy.
Really excited to talk to you today. Welcome
Thanks
to Wisco Legacy. So you both grew up in Monroe, Wisconsin. Can you talk about growing up here?
Yeah, you go ahead. You go ahead and start.
So Megan and I are sisters, and we grew up both born and raised.
We are generationally tied to Monroe, Wisconsin. Our families, I should say our parents, are on our mom's side deep into agriculture here in Monroe and Green County. On our dad's side, our grandfather owned Roof-and-Ock Oil with his brother. And so and I should say too, we have a brother who lives in the area as well with his wife and two daughters. Our extended family resides in the Monroe and Green County area. So we are a generation here, which is fairly common in our community. And it's something that I think is pretty special, especially considering the work that we do here. So yeah, we went to Northside Elementary School here, Monroe Middle School. When I went through, it was just 7th and 8th grade. And then the Monroe High School. I'm not sure.
I think it's also important to note that we come from a blended family as well. And so our parents divorced when I was 5.
I was 14.
14. And so we've navigated that in living in a small town, Monroe, and one of those things where everyone kind of knows everyone, right? So everyone kind of knows what's going on with your family. And so we also have 3 stepbrothers as well that we've grown up with, since I was, my
2002 they got, or 2001 they got married.
So,
yeah.
I mean, pretty much my whole upbringing, they've been a huge part of our lives. They're like our brothers. They're not like stepbrothers. They're our brothers. So I think that's important to note.
And they're all, local as well. So, are from the Darlington area, I should say, and then Monroe.
Yeah, it had to be challenging going through that at those young ages. And like you said, in a small town, people talk and people know everything that's going on. So it had to be challenging to go through that at those young ages.
Yeah. For me, the years of adolescence were very difficult, especially because I was trying to navigate that on top of all of the challenges that adolescence brings. And then Emily being so young too, that was a really unique kind of way to grow up. And so both of us experienced the same events, but in very different ways. And it's actually we have some really good conversations, not just between us, but with all of our family members now at this point, where we're able to talk about things that we weren't always able to talk about before. And it helps us to continue to grow and to do better and to help other people.
And you have real life experience with this, and you do, your core work is counseling and that, so you can bring some real life examples into the work that you do every day.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what were you two like as kids? I know you were into sports and things like that.
Yeah, we played sports, and what else? I did band for a little while. You did band for a while. Our brother too, he did, he was a really good track athlete. I don't know. What were we
I think, sports were, obviously, Corey, like sports are such a huge part of Monroe and the community. And I think that was just a huge part of at least mine, my childhood and upbringing. But I feel like now as I'm older, looking back, like there are so many other things that Monroe or just the community like has to offer than just sports and just identifying with sports. That I feel like, I don't know if that's any of your like outside of sports being something that you.
Yeah, when you were saying that, it just brought up for me, like, of course I'm going to go there, right? Because this is what we do. But just conversations I've had with Emily too about the challenges of figuring out who we are once we leave Monroe and we're no longer a small town athlete. For me, I tried to kind of sort through that while I was in high school, and that was really hard. I dropped a couple of sports and struggled through, the one and only sport that I kept for my final 2 years, softball, just because it was kind of an identity struggle, and it was hard. That was just a hard time for me. And Emily and I have had conversations, and with some of our peers as well who have left Monroe and who had a really difficult time figuring out who am I and what is my worth if I'm not a small town athlete who's in the newspaper anymore. What do I do now? And so you're right. I think we've had to kind of figure out and look at, and then now help other people to understand, especially those kiddos, those adolescents who come in here struggling with similar things, to help people understand that certainly it's a really cool thing that we get to be a part of here, but it's not all we are. And there's a lot more, you're right. There's a lot more to this community than being a star athlete, but it certainly is a really important part of many of our stories when we grow up here in Monroe.
Yeah, I had Jonathan Orr on a few weeks ago. He's a former Badger wide receiver, and his core work is around athlete transitions. So he talks to current and former athletes and kind of talking about that life after sports. And he does a lot of work in that identity crisis management kind of space. And I certainly identify with that myself. I went off to college. I was a 3-sport athlete in high school, went off to college and did nothing and gained a whole lot of weight. And it took me until about a year and a half ago to really finally make that transition and figure out like what my identity is. So it took me nearly a decade to get that figured out. And yeah, I can certainly attest to people going through those struggles.
Do you mind me asking you, Corey, what helped you? I'm sure you've talked about this a lot, and I haven't gotten through all of your episodes, but how did you find your way? What helped you along that?
Yeah, so for me, it was I had my first daughter, and she really helped bring out like who I am. So I struggled for so long to try and figure out who I was after sports. I wasn't the greatest athlete in the world, but I was decent and just super passionate about it. But it took me like running around in the yard with my daughter and realizing that I'm winded. Like she's a year and a half and I can't keep up with her. And so that was a huge driver for me, was to just really sit down, figure out who I am. And my identity is now a dad. That's going to evolve over time. And, as they get older and go through different life transitions themselves, my life will transition then too. But really getting seated in that, and then figuring out my wife and I wanted to have another child. And it took us a little bit for the first child. And so I knew if I could get healthy, that would certainly help with that. So those are kind of two main drivers. And it was just really trying to figure out who I was. And that certainly got me on my path to figuring that out.
And now you're here helping other people.
Yeah, trying to.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that.
It's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So you both went to Edgewood College. What was your experience like at Edgewood?
For me, Edgewood was it was a safe enough place. So I wanted to get out of Greene County. I was somebody who, when I was a teenager, I said I would leave Monroe and I'd never come back. Here I am. But I wanted to get out into the world, but I was also very scared because this is all I've known is Greene County. And so I did have a lot of anxiety with my transition, but Edgewood being a smaller campus helped me to be in a larger community, a larger city, a larger space, but also having that kind of small and kind of close-knit culture wrapped around me. And that's what I didn't know back then, but that's what Monroe had given me that I needed and wanted as part of my life moving forward. And so at Edgewood, it allowed me some space, but some safety as well. I really enjoyed my time at Edgewood. I majored in psychology, and I was there from 2002 to 2006. And Emily, you can.
Yeah, Megan and I have a lot of similarities, as you'll notice. I was also, I would identify as very anxious growing up. And so that was just watching Megan and her experience and going through her transition to Edgewood, and, going into psychology. I grew up watching her, and she was my role model. And so I wanted to follow in those footsteps. And Edgewood just created, like she said, like I felt like I was getting space, but I felt like I was safe. Like with the smaller classes, I felt like I had a relationship with my instructors and my professors, that I could go to them if I needed to talk, if I had any questions. Like I felt safe in that setting to be able to do that. And I just felt like it was the best environment for me to succeed and learn. And I actually felt like I succeeded better at Edgewood than I did in high school, because I felt like I had more of that safety with the smaller classes and just the smaller environment.
And I would add to that, but with like people not necessarily knowing you and your story and attaching that to you and your identity, right? Like that safety piece is like, I'm in this small community and I'm able to do what I need to learn, but I also don't have this narrative following me that I don't buy into and I don't identify with, but other people have maybe wrapped around me for a few years. So yeah, I totally agree with that. And Emily actually went on to do her master's, her graduate work at Edgewood as well.
Both of you decided to come back to Monroe. Monroe was where you grew up, and you had a lot of great experiences here. What drew you back to Monroe, and what drew you into starting Avenues Counseling?
You start that.
Yeah, I guess for me it was family, security, safety, and a sense of safety and security. As much as I thought I didn't want to be in Monroe, when it came down to starting a family, I couldn't imagine being anywhere other than here. Our family, our parents are here in the Monroe area. Our brother, our stepbrothers, two of them live in within a couple of hours from here, and one lives just in the Madison area. So we wanted to be amongst family, and my husband's family, they all live here as well. And so we really wanted to be close to people as we were growing our family. It felt like kind of a scary thing, and we needed that support. And so at first I kind of thought, well, I can commute to Madison if I need to for work. I didn't really see myself doing this kind of work in Monroe, because when we go through school and our training, we learn about these kind of ethical boundaries and how it's very difficult to have dual relationships and to know people that you're working with in therapy. And so we're not necessarily encouraged in our system to be working in our own hometowns, or we're not all feeling comfortable enough to do that. For me, I ended up doing internships simply because I was at my internship. When I was doing my internship, I had a 2-year-old and I was pregnant with my second, and I couldn't commute back and forth any longer. It just got to be too much to work in Madison. So my internship was here at Green County Human Services. And that's where I ended up planting my feet here in Monroe and saying, you know what, I think I can do this work here. And I think it's important that I do, because despite what we're trained or taught, I think leading with lived experience, using the experience we've had in our lives, if we do it the right way, if we do it in a way where we're really taking care of ourselves the whole time, we're seeking out our own therapy, we're doing our own consultation work with our peers around how to keep our boundaries. I think I started to understand that there's something really unique and really powerful about helping to heal the community that you grew up in. And so that's kind of how I got started in working in Monroe around mental health and in this field.
Yeah, and so Megan started Avenues in 2017, and it was just by herself in a little small office, and then moved into a bigger sized office. And I was actually living in Chicago at the time. My husband was down there for work, and I followed him down there. And I was looking for a job in Chicago, and I couldn't find anywhere that I felt was, more of a lot of the therapy practices in Chicago are very much business model based, just more for profit, just not as I couldn't find anywhere that I felt like was helping like a community aspect, right? Because it's Chicago, it's a huge place, and so I just didn't find anywhere that I felt like I fit. And then Megan reached out to me and was like, well, how would you feel about commuting here for half of your week? Because my husband and I always knew we were going to be back in, this area to raise a family, because we knew it watching my sister, it does take a village to raise a family, and we wanted to be close to our family as well. So I ended up commuting back for half a week to Monroe, and then going the other half to Chicago for a while. It was hard. But then as I came to Avenues, I started out as just a therapist and employee, and then I decided to become an owner with Megan. And it felt just right that we were both here. And Megan and I have always talked about having a therapy practice, like not necessarily in Monroe, but someday. And I feel like Avenues is a place where I wish when we were growing up, I wish we had a place like this in Monroe. Like I wish we had this where I could go somewhere, in as a child, dealing with anxiety, dealing with divorced parents, blended families. I wish I had somewhere like this to come to just be able to talk with someone and feel emotionally safe.
Yeah, I mean, Monroe is a smaller rural community. There's probably not as many groups like you in some of these smaller communities. And so it is important when you think about people that are going through life transitions and have anxiety and things like that, to have a safe space to go and have those conversations. And you guys are definitely fulfilling a need in this area by doing that. So I did want to swing back to Megan and just talk about the early days of Avenues counseling. What was the support like from your husband when you decided you wanted to start this and your whole family?
I don't think any of us knew what we were really in for. It's been a roller coaster. I think my husband knew. So what I have to say about Avenues, I worked at Green County Human Services for a period of time. I worked at Monroe Clinic for a period of time. And those systems are a huge part of our community, and they support our community in huge ways. One thing I've come to learn about myself is that I'm a highly creative and innovative person, but it's not something that was nurtured or even reflected back to me when I was growing up. I didn't know this about myself. I've come to learn this about myself. And when I was working in those systems, I didn't feel like I could do the work that I'm meant to do. And I didn't feel like I could do it in the way that I'm supposed to be doing it. So it's I'm getting a little, maybe on the spiritual end of things, but it feels like a purpose for me. It feels like a calling. And I think my husband knew in the beginning that I was following that. And I don't know that I think he was, I guess, he was maybe a little nervous about what it would mean for our family, but he also knew that it was something that was bigger than us. And it was something that I needed to just start and try. We also kind of had this added benefit of, well, then, I could create my own schedule. We had 3 children when I started Avenues, and I could create the balance that I'm looking for, because in those systems, I was working way too many hours a week, and I was not present with my family. And I was still trying to find myself in this work, right? So those systems are huge systems, and they work beautifully in our community. However, for me and my lifestyle at the time, and my husband's as well, it wasn't working for me. So I had to find a way to do what I love doing, but to also be a parent and be present with my family. And then, my extended family rallied around me too. My mom had retired at the time, and she watched my children for me so that I didn't have to pay daycare. Huge. I wouldn't be able to do this without that. My husband carries our insurance. I wouldn't be able to do this without that. So there were so many things that just kind of put us in a position to say, we cannot not take this risk. We have to try. And so I leapt and I did it. And it was a little messy, and it was difficult to figure out, how to bring all the pieces together, and to even, will insurance companies contract with me? Will they be able to help me create access for people to come into avenues? Will that then create more access for people to have jobs here too? If I can have more therapists come on board and create a group practice. So that's those early days were a little scary, but really exciting at the same time, and pretty messy.
Yeah. I mean, taking the leap and getting into entrepreneurship, being that you were a therapist for a while, that was probably a big leap to really kind of wrap your head around everything that's involved. It's like you said, you got to work with insurance companies to have them be part of your group and things like that. And just all the back end logistical things and that come behind it is a lot. So I'm sure there was a lot of things you learned throughout that process. Yeah. Awesome. So can you, either one of you, give a brief overview of what Avenues Counseling does, kind of the services you provide, and talk a bit about the team?
Yeah, we have five therapists, 2 support staff. So Megan and I and John are therapists. We see children and families, but we're not limited to that. We see, all the way from age 0 to whatever age. And so we focus on that. Megan and I work with a lot of, Megan went through the UW Infant and Early Childhood Family Mental Health Capstone Program that works with children, young infants, 0 to 5, and their mothers and their families. And I'm actually going through that right now, the same program. So we're looking to kind of continue to expand our services to be able to provide that. But also working with a lot of trauma, both children and adults, women's issues, anxiety, depression, ADHD, perinatal mental health. So that's like postpartum and through pregnancy. John, we have a school-based mental health program here that John, our therapist, is the director of. And so we go into different schools and provide services for Monroe, Broadhead. Is that it?
Those are the two
those are the two like big ones.
Are pretty consistent with. Mm-hmm. We've done some in Albany as well, but most consistently Monroe and Broadhead at this time.
And then we have 2 other therapists, Cheryl, who she works primarily with adolescents and adults, and she does more of like persistent mental health, like severe and persistent mental health, and also does some alcohol and drug and alcohol work. And then we have one more, Melissa, who she works with adolescents and adults as well.
She's getting ready to actually take her test. She will be a licensed psychologist after her test is complete and passed. And so then she'll be able to offer new services that we haven't even had available yet in terms of psychological testing. And those services are on high demand, and they're very difficult to get in for, especially in our area, but even in Madison. And so we feel really fortunate to have her here to be able to offer some of that coming up in the near future. So we have a team that jives pretty well together. We tend to really specialize in working kind of in systems, right? So a number of us will see different family members, and we can come together and do co-therapy. I've worked, a number of my colleagues and I have either with couples or with parent-child duos and dynamics. We're able to really wrap services around families and around different relationships, because what we understand is that the mental health concerns and issues, presenting problems that people come in here with, they don't just lie within that person. They also lie between people. There are problems within us, but there are problems between all of us as well. And the people and the systems around us, the culture, the schools, the family members, the friends, the peers, everybody here in this community impacts everybody. And so I think what's unique about us is that we see it this way, and we bring that into our therapeutic work, and we prioritize things that aren't just self-harm and suicide is not the only crisis or priority situation that we want people to understand and to uphold as a priority. We need people to understand that all mental health issues are a priority, especially when it comes to domestic violence or trauma, especially with young children. And excuse me, we want, in terms of, I know we're going to talk about Be the Change, but we have an understanding of how the earlier we can help and reach people, and especially so when we talk about the zero, people are like, how do you do therapy with an infant, right? Well, we do it. It's a relational therapy with the adult and the child together. And it really, the client is the relationship. It's not just one individual. It's the relationship and the dynamic and the system that the issue exists in. And so I think that's kind of that's what makes us a little bit different, is that we can specialize in something that the larger systems aren't able to take on and specialize in at this point.
Yeah, sounds like really great work and great services you're providing to our community and communities around here. So, excuse me. Yeah, that's really great. Can you talk about the community support you've received and the community involvement that you have? I know there's some programs you work with, some other, I believe you work with Jacob Swag, who was just a guest on the podcast, and some of the other groups around Monroe. Can you talk about some of that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's so many, I feel like.
Jacob Swag Foundation is a big one, and so is Justice for a Cure. So we run free support groups every month for people who have been impacted by cancer, any kind of cancer diagnosis. We also run a group once a month for caregivers who have lost loved ones to cancer, or family members, caregivers, people who cared for people who have passed due to cancer. Justice for a Cure, we partner with them to make that happen. We facilitate it, but they do all of the kind of marketing and letting people know that it's there and talking about it. And they've got, signs and treats and things. We come in and have a facilitator available to sit with people and to kind of create space for that. And in the past, we've been able to do that for survivors of suicide. And I believe, and we did it just for a brief while, right before COVID, which is why it's not going on any longer, child loss support group. And so our hope is to be able to do more of these support groups, these free support groups for our community in the future. But we've gotten so much support from Jacob Swag and Justice for a Cure, so much support from them in all that we do. But then also the Monroe School District has been a huge supporter of us, allowing us to share our gifts with them in their schools and to support them. United Way has been in the past year especially, has been a huge supporter of the work that we're doing, and especially in taking care of caretakers and caregivers of young children and teachers of young children. So United Way has been a huge supporter. I'm just, people in the community in general, like, this was all word of mouth. Started in 2017, there was no marketing that had to be done, and we've never needed it. We've never, even when we put things out there, we've never needed it because we have a wait list that we can't keep up with. We can't meet the needs of everybody who's coming here. And Yeah, it's
in our latest, we are partnering with the YMCA and the other for the Youth Development Center, that the grant that they were awarded. And so we're a part of that. We're going to be a part of that process, as well as partnering with all the other partners in the community to develop that,
yeah,
which is really cool. It's really cool to be a part of.
To even be thought of for that is huge. It's humbling. It's really huge.
Mm-hmm. It shows the impact that your group is making on the community, and mental health awareness seems to be, with the pandemic we have going on. I'm sure there's been a lot more need for mental health and having these conversations and things like that. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and it seems like people are more open to talking about going to therapy and talking about their mental health than they ever have been. I don't know if you have seen that, or what are your thoughts on the whole mental health awareness and just people having those conversations out in the open.
Yeah, I think that, honestly, the pandemic, I feel like, has really, the fact that now telehealth services are very prevalent, and they're huge. And I think that's like even opened up more access and more ability, like just talking about it. And I've just heard more and more people feel just comfortable and safe to be able to share that. And I think that's part of our role, is to break that stigma, to just be, just be really open and vulnerable with our own personal stories, so people feel like they can also be vulnerable.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, well, and I listen to a decent amount of podcasts as well, and I hear every commercial break, BetterHelp, Talkspace, all, right? It's like podcast hosts are talking more and more about their own, like, hey, I really needed this or that, and I called BetterHelp, or I did this or that, right? So you're right. I think it's normalized. It is humanized and destigmatized on some level struggle that we all have as human beings. And that is something that, for me, I have felt like I'm kind of this maximizer, like this person who likes to maximize opportunities. And when the pandemic came, it felt like an opportunity for growth and expansion. And that's what I've been really just, that's a lot of days what gets me through the stressful stuff, all the quarantining and the chaos around, 4 kids in schools and masks and all these things, right? There's such a thing as traumatic growth. And I've lived that. And it's a gift I want to share with people. And I have felt like in the midst of the pandemic, that it's been an opportunity and we've seen it, because this YMCA grant, this amazing almost $8 million grant we got, I don't know that would be there without all that's happened, right? Like, there is opportunity and growth available in pain and suffering. And Avenues has taken it upon ourselves to be a part of that, change, and to encourage other people to join us in that. And part of that is talking more openly about the fact that we all struggle, and that it is human to have issues that someone like a therapist could help with, or peer supports can help with, right? And so, yeah, I think that's a huge, huge gift that's come out of the last couple of years, is that this is becoming more of a topic that people are willing to be vulnerable around. And that's what we're needing in order to form. I don't know if you are a Brene Brown fan, right? But she talks a lot about connection and courage in the midst of it. We cannot have these things without vulnerability. And that's what we're asking people to do, is to sit with vulnerability and to connect with others in it, and to feel like they are not alone. And by doing that, we're changing our community.
Yeah, absolutely. The like you said, the willingness to open up. I'm just so glad that people are willing to open up and have these conversations. You flip through Instagram, and a lot of it's like all this positive and all this stuff like that. But then there are people that open up and talk about their needs and their mental health and things like that. And that's, like you said, that's how it becomes destigmatized, and it's how we build a better I don't know if better is the right word, but a community and have people continue to learn and grow through that. So yeah, I'm super glad that you have taken this opportunity to really grow and develop and help build this community up. So I want to talk about Be the Change Green County. So it's a recent initiative that you just posted about a few weeks ago on social media. And would one of you be willing to kind of talk through what you're working on for Be the Change Green County?
Yeah. So this is, so where it came from really is my family, myself, my daughter, we have 4 children. My husband and I have 4 children. 11 is our oldest, down to our youngest just turned 4. And when our youngest entered the world, we had some very, very big trauma and adversity that was imposed upon us that we were not really ready for. Her entry into the world was pretty difficult. My water broke at 24 weeks and I was hospitalized for a couple of months with my other children being at home, and my youngest at that time, she was 21 months. And so that was a really important time for us to be together that we were not able to be together for. It took a toll. So I was hospitalized for a couple of months, and she was still born 2 months early. We were in the NICU for a while. Some pretty traumatic things happened while we were in the NICU that we had to deal with for a couple of years after leaving the NICU. But we also had a scare after we came home about a week later. We had to go to the PICU, the pediatric ICU, as our daughter had caught RSV, and she wasn't even to her due date yet. And she was pretty vulnerable, and it was very scary. So there were like 5 months of active, just, trauma, being involved in a medical system. And then for 2 years after that, dealing with the aftermath of the medical and legal system with some of the things that had happened at the hospital. The community really rallied around us when it came to, we were in the hospital, people were bringing meals over to my family, people were giving us gas cards, and just sending so much love and thoughts and prayers. What I came to understand is that our family needed the most support after we came home. And there were years of just great struggle that we had. And it wasn't always understood by people around us, even our immediate family, right? It wasn't, and not because people don't care, but just because we don't always talk about these things. We don't always let people see what struggle is and the messiness in the aftermath of trauma. And so Be the Change really came from last year, or I should say a year and a half ago, the pandemic was going on, and I had my whiteboard out, and I was like, I just have all of these ideas and thoughts and feelings and things flowing through me. I can't keep up with them. They're moving so fast, but I have so many things I want to share and things that I want to do to help everyone, to help myself, to help everyone. And so I just started mapping things out on my whiteboard. And what came out of that was what I had sent you, that PDF. It was a kind of a mind map, and I haven't updated that in a while. So there are some changes to that I might even make, but it essentially became this map for myself around how we can use the pandemic and the situation, and not just the pandemic, but there's been so much going on that has divided people and that has caused just so much more suffering for people. So I really just took a look at our community, at what I've experienced and learned in working at the different systems in our community, and from working in avenues, and from all the people that come into our office that we try to help and that we try to sit with in their struggles. I took all of that and put that down into an idea. And we have sat and talked about that idea amongst our team ever since. So
for a year and a half,
very
long time.
We've had this shirt idea for a long time. I started making shirts on my Cricut with my creativity, with different things, Brene Brown quotes and things. And we were going to sell those to fundraise. And so this idea, this Be the Change Green County, has shifted and changed a few times. And something just more recently, it just felt like the right timing to share it with the community. We've been talking about how to share it for so long. And all of a sudden we're like, it's a time to share it. It's time to share it now. But we had to kind of re-strategize how we were going to do the shirts, because we don't have the time and energy and resources to sit on a Cricut and make them all day long. So instead we just used our logo to be very simple and easy about it. And we're able to partner with another business in town, Heartland Graphics, to help us make the shirts. And so essentially what we're doing is this fundraiser. We're inviting the community to be a part of this change. And it's not just bringing services to our community. It's not just starting programs. It's an attitude shift. It's a perspective change about the way we see ourselves and how we see other people, and then how we show up in our community for each other and other people. And so part of that is the destigmatization, but there's a lot of other things that go with that. And another big underlying theme is intergenerational change, is saying there's so many beautiful things that we bring from the generations before us, and we need to use those as strengths. And there are some things that we've been doing for a very long time that just aren't working anymore. And it's okay for us to ask, is this what, why are we doing this, first of all? And is it still serving us and working in the same way? And if not, is there a new way we can think about doing this? And can we all do it together? And so that's really, for me, what Be the Change kind of started out as. And now I want to pass it to you to kind of take
I think as far as, what we're looking for, like what we're trying to do with this fundraiser and with the proceeds that we get, is to create a community and to create learning for professionals and for other community members, community partners, not just avenues. So like the clinic or Green County or, all the ones that we've listed, nonprofits to be able to also benefit from this, to be able to send them to different trainings, to get certain specialized training, to be able to provide quality specialized care, such as, the infant and early childhood family mental health. What else? Like social and emotional learning and development for little kids. Crisis intervention.
Taking care of our caretakers. So really coming to understand from a systems perspective how our helpers need help. Our providers at the clinic, people who are helping and serving other people there, childcare professionals, so people who are taking care of other people's children, parents and grandparents who take care of kids, their children's children, like our mom does. That's a big population we want people to start rallying around and saying, hey, we need to help our helpers, because without them, we won't sustain. Mm-hmm. And we do serve a lot of people who are different, who are parts of these larger systems, who are coming in and just struggling to sustain. Because I've heard a lot about people feeling devalued in their positions, just in that, and not to get in, there's, no debate, not, around mask wearing or not mask wearing, but there's a certain kind of feeling valued or devalued that healthcare professionals can feel and have spoken up and talked about when people choose not to, practice safety in terms of the pandemic. It's not just about like wearing a mask or not wearing a mask for professionals. When we're talking about like the kind of emotional level that we're talking about, there's a level of feeling unseen and unheard and unvalued in their positions. And so we don't always understand how deeply things can impact people. And that's what we're asking people to do, right? It's a shift about helping people to kind of assume the best about one another at times too. It's amazing how life-changing it can be to carry the belief that everybody you come across is doing the best they can with what they have. And it's a life-changing shift in perspective. And so that's part of what we're wanting to do, is we're wanting to invite the community. We don't want to just do it ourselves. We don't want avenues just take this on and go do it. We want to say, hey, we are all stronger together. And a sense of connection and community helps us all know that we're not alone in this work, and it helps us be able to sustain and carry it forward. And it changes things for generations to come.
That's incredible. Thank you for that big synopsis of what you're planning on doing. It's selfless in trying to include all these other organizations and things like that. And that really I can attest, just briefly knowing both of you, that I can sense that when we're having this conversation, that it's about the community, it's about the people. There's obviously you want to continue to grow your business, but you also want to help as many people as you can in the best way you can. So how can people support this initiative? So what's the best way?
Well, our shirt fundraiser, we have a shirt fundraiser going on now through January 31st. Excuse me. And that link is on our website.
It's also on our Facebook page.
And our website is www.avenuescounselingllc.com. And we will be having additional fundraisers, just depending on how this goes. We'll likely roll out additional fundraisers and new and possibly even bringing out some of our Be the Change designs and shirts at some point, because those have really important, impactful messages on them. That it's not just about Avenues. We really, excuse me, did use our logo to try to save some time and energy and resources on our end. But we're hopeful that if we can grow a little bit more and bring some additional people in, that we might have some additional resources to do more kinds of designs and shirts fundraisers. But right now, that fundraiser is a huge way to help. Another way is to simply even contact and reach out to us to let us know that you're interested in being part of this project, because there are a number like I said, creativity and innovation is where I'm at right now, and it's serving us pretty well. And so we are open to all sorts of different ways of people helping, whether it's volunteering or donating things to certain causes, helping us make connections with other people in the community who could benefit from being a part of the change with us.
I think something else that just anyone can do that could help is to, right now we're really quick to blame and shame people right now, because we're all under this traumatic stress, right? Like, it's really easy for us to be quick when something happens and we have this huge feeling to point the finger at someone or to blame someone or, something that's going on. And I think to just stop and just try to understand and try to empathize with someone else, and to have them just to be able to try to be seen and heard. I think that's just something that we can all try to do. And that's kind of what we're striving for with Be the Change.
Yeah. Give grace. Give grace.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Okay. So it sounds like there's a wait list to get into Avenues Counseling. So how can people access your services? What's the best way to contact and get on the wait list and utilize your resources?
We have on our website, we have a self-referral where people can fill out their information, what they're looking for, and it comes directly to our office with our staff who does all of our intakes. That is one way to reach out to us. The other way is to call our office, 325-1070, and to either speak with Christine, who typically answers when she's in, or to leave a message for her. Those would be probably the two best ways to get a hold of us.
Sounds good. Anything on Avenues Counseling, mental health, or anything? Otherwise, I got some final questions to wrap up our conversation.
Yeah, so thanks for letting us speak.
I spewed it all out.
Yeah.
Thanks for giving us the space.
Absolutely. All right. So I have 3 rapid fire questions. I'll ask each of you to answer, and then I have 2 final questions for you. So Emily, I'll have you start on these questions. Okay.
Oh boy. Okay.
All right. First question. What's your favorite restaurant in Wisconsin?
Oh, that's a good one. In Wisconsin. Oh,
It's rapid fire.
I know. This is really I don't know.
Pressure's on.
Okay, can it not? Does it have to just be in Wisconsin? Okay, Wisconsin.
It can be a chain restaurant or something that's outside of Wisconsin, but there has to be one that you eat in Wisconsin.
Okay, so if it's a chain, I'd have to say Chipotle because I'm obsessed with Chipotle.
Nice.
But if it's just Wisconsin based, I don't know. I don't know. There's this steakhouse in Madison called Delaney's, and it's really, really good. And so it's like a supper club, and I'm all about supper clubs, Wisconsin supper clubs.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
Do you get the old fashioned at the supper club?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. Awesome. Megan?
Maybe it's, because I'm missing it so much right now, but I'm going to have to just say Ponchos and Lefties. right here in Monroe. That is my favorite, or was, my favorite place to be.
Yep. And that's right around the corner from your office,
It
essentially.
is.
So,
It is.
yeah. All right. Second one. What's your favorite event in Wisconsin?
Oh, Badger and Packer games. That's easy.
Nice.
I would have to concur, but for just to have it put out a different kind of answer, I do enjoy Bratfest. Haven't been able to get there for a few years, but I like Bratfest, live music and brats. Yes, I have some fond memories at Bratfest, even when my kids were little. So,
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, when Bratfest is in town, I work in Madison. I work at home now. But when I was working up in Madison, we'd get like brat deliveries at 9 a.m. and yeah.
Oh, so
only in Wisconsin.
I know, and we didn't say cheese days.
I was going to say cheese days.
What?
I just thought that too.
Cheese days.
Yeah.
Well, we haven't had it for 4 years, so it's like
devastating. I know.
Mm-hmm. We'll see. Hopefully, we can get it done this year. We'll see. All right, last rapid fire question. Where's your favorite place to hang out in Wisconsin?
Oh,
Madison for me.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
It feels like a second home.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. All right, 2 final questions here for you. First one is, how has Monroe or Wisconsin helped shape you into who you are?
That's a big one.
I think for me, just the safety in just both Monroe and Wisconsin. I don't know. Sometimes it just feels like one big family. Like it's very family oriented. It's, I think, you know how they always talk about like Midwest nice. Like I just feel like that kind and nurturing just atmosphere that I think sometimes we have in Wisconsin that's not everywhere.
Yeah,
I would agree. I wouldn't be this. I mean, I just wouldn't be the same person if I had grown up on the East Coast or the West Coast or whatever. I think I would be a completely different person. There's some, in terms of nature and nurture, environment is huge in terms of development and shaping somebody. And for me, I guess just even valuing things that I didn't even know I valued, right? So just like learning for myself when I think about coming back, making a choice to come back here when I didn't think I would ever come back here because I was angry and maybe hurt about the way that things felt when I was younger here. I guess helping myself to come back around to see that I truly do value the culture that we have here in this small community. Like I don't even want to live I don't want to live in Madison because that feels very different to me. My husband and I talk about that. We want this small community feel. Outside of it, we don't feel at home. And so when it comes to living, to hang out, certainly, but to live, this is where we belong.
Yeah, I relate to both of what you said. So that's great. All right, last question for you, Emily. I'll have you start this one. When all is said and done, what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind?
I think I would want people to remember me by legacy is someone who gave them the space to be seen and to be heard for who they are and to feel safety in the vulnerability and just have someone. My favorite Brene Brown quote is, you don't have to do it alone. We were never meant to. And I think that's something that I really feel connected to, that I hope, with whoever I give that, whoever comes in my path, that they don't feel like they're alone when they're in my presence.
Great. Thanks. Megan?
Be the change comes to mind for me. I hope to leave people better than I found them by simply modeling how to be a good, caring, loving person in the world who accepts others, who makes space for others, like Emily said, and to empower people to understand that it lies within each and every one of us. All of us has what we need. We have the resources within us to make a difference in the world. And I just hope that I can help people step into their power and to take that and do whatever they're meant to do in the world with it.
That's great. Both of you are making incredible strides in doing the work that you do. The whole community of Monroe and Greene County, I'm sure, appreciate everything that you're doing. And so I certainly appreciate all the work that you're doing. And keep up the great work. Really excited to see how this Be the Change Greene County grows from here.
Well, thank you, Corey. And thanks for being part of the change just by giving us a voice here.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else you want to chat about before we wrap up here?
Just thank you. So. Thank you very much.
You bet. All right. Well, thanks for joining Wisco Legacy. Thank you to Megan and Emily from Avenues Counseling for joining Wisco Legacy and sharing their story and working on the Be the Change Greene County initiative. Follow along with them on social media. Just look up Avenues Counseling. They have a website, avenuescounselingllc.com, that you can check out. We'll have more information on Be the Change Greene County moving forward. The fundraiser just wrapped up yesterday, but they will have more fundraisers in the future, so follow along on social media there. And if you like this podcast, go follow us on all our social media channels, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. We also have the YouTube channel here if you want to subscribe there too. And finally, rate and review the podcast on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen. It certainly helps us bump up those charts.